This is another off-season update. This is me right after my 12 weeks into this off-season. The last update was at 8 weeks into my off-season, I think. So since then, I have gained roughly 6-ish pounds. Maybe 6, maybe 5, I don't know. So back then, I was around 161 to 162. Right now, I'm at like a solid 166. Sometimes going up to like 167 plus. And if you're wondering, I know it's a bit aggressive. It's like 6-ish pounds in 4 weeks. And actually, that's been like 3 weeks because I was out of the country for a week in between these two updates. And while I was out, I've managed to accidentally lose a pound. So right now, this is me after gaining like 6 pounds in around 3 weeks. And I actually have a good reason for this. A good reason why I'm going very aggressive with my rate of gain. And I'm not going to talk about that now. I'm going to be talking about that next week. So you guys better stay tuned for next week's video. Now, again, just some updates, So for food, it's been somewhere around 3,200 to 3,500-ish. I try my best right now not to go anywhere below 3,000. I find that if I hit something below 3,000 for more than a few days, my weight starts to go down. So I've been keeping it around the 3,200-ish range. Some days I'll still hit like 3,000, and then on the next day I'll go 3,500 just to balance it out. Protein right now, I've actually been doing a much better job. I've been hitting around 160 to 170 grams of protein, which, I've been having trouble with that for the past, maybe the past year, past 2 years. But, I've finally been able to hit like a consistent 160 to 170. Sometimes I'll go over, sometimes I hit like 200 to 220. That's only when, I don't really have a lot of food options left and I'd rather just default to protein sources. Carbs right now, actually my plan is around 400 grams of carbs, which has been really hard to do, honestly. I hit that maybe like once or twice a week. And for the rest of those days, it's really, I don't really get to plan my days out as I did on prep. I wasn't able to prep most of my food like I used to. I just don't have as much, grocery or stock in my house as I usually do. So what happens is I will often find myself in the 350 to 360 range, but hopefully moving forward, I'll be able to be more consistent. And then for my fat, it is, I don't know, my fat is sort of all over the place. I think I have it planned at around 75, maybe 80. But I do find myself, because I can't hit my carbs, I will often just go for more fat, and that usually takes me up to around 120. I try my best not to go over that 120. That's sort of like my ceiling in the range of my fat intake. But of course, there really are just some days where hitting, that 400 grams of carbs and that 75 grams of fat, where that becomes sort of impossible. Like when I'm out and I'm just really trying to chase calories, I'm gonna have to go somewhere around like 200-ish grams of carbs. It's just not as easy to eat, especially when you're out with your friends or with your family. Just not that easy to hit that 400 grams. And for those days, sometimes I go like 200 to 250. Maybe my fat goes up to around like 150-ish. But that's pretty rare. So usually I hit around like 350 and then around 120. But overall, food's been pretty good, I guess. It's not that consistent, it's not that accurate. But in terms of my appetite, I've been doing okay. Could be better, for sure. But, when I see my appetite go down, that's just going to be a sign for me to maybe get more steps in. In terms of training, I've been doing very well. I think most of my lifts have been increasing. And really, most of these lifts have been like, since the previous update, they've been reaching like peak strength. Like I have hit most of my previous best numbers since like 4 weeks ago, and until now they're still progressing. I guess most notably would be like my high incline presses. Barbell is at like 90, dumbbells are like 42.5. My curls right now, those are still going up. They've been going up ever since the start of prep, and until now they're still going up. Most of my single joint stuff all going up. And in terms of my squat, my bench, and my deadlift, they've actually been doing very well. I've only put them back into the rotation for about 5-ish yeah, 5-ish weeks, and that's only like one session per week where I actually do them, and they've practically matched the old best numbers. I think my deadlift is a bit behind. My bench is also maybe just a little bit behind, but right now when I do them, they feel much more safe. They feel much more stable, and I feel like maybe in a few more weeks of being specific to the SBD, I might actually hit some new PRs. But considering, again, I've only been doing this for a few weeks, I do feel very good, and it's nice because I feel confident that the muscle I've built in the past few years does translate somewhat into my strength. So that's it for my current status, my current like update, I guess. And in terms of where I'm headed, next week is gonna be a deload for me. I've been pushing for a solid 4-ish weeks, even when I was like out of the country. I was pushing quite well. Obviously, the training environment wasn't as perfect as I would like, but given the situation, given the context, given the environment, I actually think I did quite well. And at this point, I do feel like for the first time in a few, I don't know, in a few mesocycles, I actually feel like I really do need like a legitimate deload. So a deload next week. For next week, it's also gonna be a bit more conservative with my calories, just because I don't think I'll be expending as much from training. And after that, I will continue to push calories up a bit more. Maybe somewhere around like that 3,300 and up range. And I would like to see myself hit 170 pounds, which has been my peak body weight during this whole bodybuilding career. Pretty light for most people, but I am pretty short. So 170 pounds, that is the goal, the sort of immediate short-term goal. But yeah, I'm gonna try to hit that new body weight high, and then go on a bit of a maintenance, go on a mini cut, and then repeat that process again and again until I've hit maybe like 180 pounds. And that's about it. It's a boring off season, and you know what? I'm serious when I say it gets boring. And I know people like to ask like which is harder, like bulking or cutting, but I don't know. They're both hard in their own way, and you really have to think about it. Like people can say bulking is easy because people think bulking is just eating food. But if you're thinking about a bulk as a time where you're actively trying to chase increase in muscle mass while still holding, while still not gaining an excessive amount of body fat, and if you're thinking about cutting as losing body fat while still making the most, while still retaining the most amount of muscle, that becomes much harder than just saying, hey, bulking is easy because you can eat more, and cutting is easy because you can eat less. But if I were to choose between the two, honestly, I think bulking with intent, bulking with proper planning, proper training, proper nutrition, that is going to be a much more difficult process, much less straightforward than just trying to cut. Although I will say, if we're talking about cutting, if we're talking about getting real shredded, getting into competition shape, getting into the sub 8% in body fat, that might be a different conversation altogether. But in general, just trying to gain more muscle, that is going to be a much longer process, and you're going to need much more patience. Honestly, a lot more mental strength in terms of being able to accept things like that slight gradual increase in body fat. So for this week, yun lang naman. Next week, I'll be talking about my reasons as to why I'm being so aggressive with this surplus, why I'm being so aggressive with this rate of gain. Which means if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. And this is one of those filler videos, not really that useful, but it would help if you liked this video. And if you have any more questions about my bulk, leave that question in the comment section below. Peace.